Hey Guardians, I just want to let everyone know that I do have both a Twitch and a Twitter, and I'm very active on both. Feel free to come give me a follow on both, links in the description. Oh boy, where to begin with this one? Well, today we're talking about the comp weapon, Peculiar Charm, and Peculiar is definitely an appropriate name for it. And do me a favor and stick around till the end of this video because there's a discussion involving this weapon and just kind of the game in general that I want to have. That's right everyone, instead of making Mos Athenor the strongest legendary PvP gun in the game right now, the comp weapon, they made it this thing. So was that a wise decision from Bungie? Oh, don't worry, we're going to talk about that. Now, this weapon does have some interesting stuff on it, for PvP mostly, and a few things for PvE as well, but as always, we're going to start with PvP. Now, again, this is a burst fire submachine gun, which does make it kind of weird. The first thing to note is that while Light GG's range numbers seem to usually be correct, this was another weapon where it was incorrect. The roll you're seeing on your screen right now has 90 range, and Light GG shows a 90 range Peculiar Charm as having 22.6 meters of reach. But I already knew this SMG could reach beyond that, so I went into the firing range and tested it myself. With that same roll, I was comfortably reaching out to 25 meters, which means that if you had a max range roll on here, meaning rangefinder, then you're likely looking at 26 meters. That's just something worth noting. This is a very rangy submachine gun. Now, jumping right into things with PvP, we'll start by taking a look at Charm's base stats. 43 range with around 20-ish meters of reach, a truly abysmal 28 stability, and 49 handling, which also isn't great, and then 28 aim assist and 24 AE. So, your range here really isn't great. While I long for the days when 20 meters was considered good for a submachine gun, nowadays Fast Talker and Immortal can reach well beyond that, like 25 meters or more. And so we need to get that range up so it isn't completely bullied by other submachine guns. Next up, stability is also just horrific, which is an issue because again, this is a burst fire weapon just like a pulse rifle, and much like a pulse rifle, you're going to want higher stability since without it, the sudden climb of that burst recoil can be jarring, particularly at the closer ranges you'll be using this thing. And then the handling really isn't that big of a deal, we'll talk about that later. And so with that in mind, for your stat perks, go with polygonal rifling, accurized rounds, fitted stock, and a stability masterwork. Then from there, if the weapon is tier 3 or below, go with ballistics. If tier 4 or above, go with enhanced ballistics for range and stability. Now, assuming the weapon is tier 5, that will put you at 77 range with around 24 meters of reach, 62 stability, and 50 handling. Your handling will take a very slight hit from fitted stock, but it's worth it for the stability and to bring that recoil direction up. Now, jumping into those last two columns, in that third column you have rangefinder, rapid hit, stopping power, and lone wolf. Fourth column, head seeker, master of arms, and desperado. Actually, a pretty skimpy perk pool for a comp weapon. As always, we'll start with just a solid dueling roll, and for that purpose, in the third column I would go with either rangefinder or actually stopping power. Rangefinder will give you plus 10 to your range and increase the weapon's zoom, as we've discussed in other reviews. This will help your aim assist towards the end of the weapon's effective reach, and yes, that does still matter on M&K due to bullet magnetism. And then stopping power will boost the weapon's target acquisition, which is essentially just aim assist, and damage against low health targets within an improved range. I know rapid and lone wolf are on there as well, however, I have tried those perks as well, and rangefinder and stopping power were by far the best. And personally, I actually found I preferred stopping power, and the problem is I can't really put my finger on why. My guess is really just that the target acquisition meant that against opponents I damaged, the weapon was just bending bullets harder, and the extra damage may have increased my forgiveness a bit. That being said, rangefinder is still by no means a bad option, particularly if you want to stretch your reach out. And then from there, in that fourth column, obviously head seeker for extra crit damage and aim assist on body shot kills, and this did seem to synergize very well with stopping power also. Just double forgiveness perks helping to stack things in your favor. Now, if instead you wanted to slay out with this thing and go for kill chaining, then stopping power and rangefinder are still going to be your best options in the third column, but in the fourth column you have desperado and than Master of Arms. And of the two, please just go with Master of Arms. Seriously, ignore Desperado. We'll talk about why in a bit, but Master of Arms is a perk we've talked about many times before. Get a kill with any weapon, get a 15% damage buff on charm for 7 seconds, get another kill with any weapon during that time, and get 2 stacks of Master of Arms for a 25% damage buff for 4 seconds. And when that 4-second timer runs out, instead of the perk just leaving, it just drops back down to 1 stack for 7 seconds. Now, as far as TTK numbers go, it's a little odd on this weapon. Kind of hard to tell, mainly because D2 Foundry still hasn't updated TTKs for some of these new weapons. At base, you're looking at around 0.8-ish seconds. And with Master of Arms, while it's very difficult to actually tell what it is because, again, D2 Foundry hasn't updated and I don't have a way of testing this consistently, I would guess with Master of Arms, you're shaving that TTK to somewhere around 0.7 seconds, give or take a little. But here's the thing, on this weapon, I don't think it really matters much, and I'm going to tell you why, which brings me to the next part of this video. How did Peculiar Charm perform in combat? I'm going to preface this part by saying that I can totally picture this being a weapon that some people really fall in love with and latch onto and become very effective with. But overall, I really wasn't impressed. When you look at submachine guns as a whole, the general idea behind them is a close quarters bullet hose that will typically be used in more aggressive playstyles. But this weapon just didn't really serve that purpose very well. If anything, it felt like it was meant to be used in an almost more ratty manner, which is very counter to how SMGs are typically used. In close quarters, the burst fire actually felt rather jarring as opposed to the more constant, consistent recoil of a normal, fully automatic submachine gun, where just steady downwards pressure on a stick or with a mouse is enough to fight the recoil, which is why I generally recommend higher stability on this weapon, and it's also why the gameplay you've seen in the background has been on Dragon Shadow, since it will also help the weapon stability. And this is why I don't recommend Desperado on it. The sudden increase in firing cadence is just too jarring. And the lower TTK without the help of something like target lock on a weapon like Shayura's also meant that in a head-on gunfight with other CQC weapons, Charm just failed to perform. Which is why if you're going to use this thing, I would generally recommend ambush tactics. Making hard flanks while an opponent is distracted, or using invis to get off the radar and then trying to take people off guard with it. One of my initial thoughts with this thing was that maybe with it being burst fire, the idea was for there to be an SMG that was easier to use on M&K. But I play M&K, and I can tell you that SMGs like Immortal and Fast Talker, while still better on Roller, are still much easier to use than this thing was. I'm sure you've noticed that there aren't many people using this thing in PvP, and there's good reason for that. It just doesn't perform as well as other submachine guns. Even range-wise, 26 meters with this thing, or 25 meters with an Immortal that's just easier to use and kills faster. It's kind of a no-brainer. This really feels a lot like heavy burst hand cannons. Remember those? You basically never see them in PvP either, and that's because they're these weird halfway points between a pulse rifle and a 120, but they don't do anything that just a normal pulse or a 120 hand cannon won't do better. And in my opinion, the same can be said of Peculiar Charm. It just doesn't really do anything that a normal SMG or pulse rifle won't just do better. And so honestly, I just wasn't impressed with it in PvP. There were times when it felt good, but those were few and far between. And this is especially bad given how awful the population in comp has been over the last really few years. I mean, at least when we had weapons like Rose, Deadlock, or Redrix, you could count on pop being good at least on Tuesdays because everyone wanted to get their roll on those weapons. Yet another reason to please give us the ability to acquire those weapons in some way from playing comp, because they're still great weapons and people would still grind for them even if they weren't tiered. Now, what about PvE? It's actually not bad there. In the third column, you have Attrition Orbs, Impromptu Ammunition, Stopping Power, and Shoot to Loot. Fourth column, Firefly, All-Star, Kinetic Tremors, Master of Arms, and Bewildering Burst. honestly kind of funny and annoying that there's actually more PvE combos than PvP combos here. Comp weapons should always be almost entirely PvP focused. But as far as combos go, obviously attrition orbs and kinetic tremors is never a bad option. Tried and true and reliable, this combo has been seen on multiple weapons and it's popular in PvE for a reason. And then you have shoot to loot with tremors, which is also a very good combo since with kinetic tremors, landing hits will eventually trigger a pulsating explosion around your target, and that explosion can actually proc shoot to loot and pick up ammo. Next up, stopping power, aside from the benefits described in the PvP section, will stagger combatants in PvE as well. You could combine this with Master of Arms for just a very solid role for general play. Otherwise, impromptu ammunition, which just helps your ammo gen on kills, coupled with Master of Arms, would also be a very solid option for, again, just general play. And of course, if you want it to feel a bit more potent in endgame content, I would highly recommend pairing it with PKs just for the free damage. And those are easily my favorite combos on this weapon for PvE, and again, it really wasn't bad in PvE, nothing crazy, and yet again, in higher level content, primaries do feel very weak, and there's for sure a lot of competition in that kinetic slot, but it's by no means a bad PvE weapon. And so for PvP, it's niche to say the least. In PvE, it's not bad. Is it worth grinding comp for? I mean, in my opinion, probably not. And this leads to a couple issues Bungie has with PvP. One, loot can make a good short-term way to bring up the population in PvP, but it doesn't hold out long-term. PvP players will play PvP for the sake of PvP when the sandbox is good, but when the sandbox is awful, like right now, the instant they get the role they want, they'll just stop playing. And two, using loot as a short-term solution only works if it's strong loot, particularly in environments like comp. I mean, people will for sure grind for guns if they think it's worth their time, and again, there's a reason you probably haven't seen this gun much in PvP. Why would I grind comp for this when Athenor just drops from normal PvP? Why would I grind for this when Immortal drops from Trials? Control has no stakes, and Trials is easier than comp. You get the idea. But that's all for me today, Guardians. If you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button, leave me a comment with your thoughts on this weapon, in particular if you like this weapon because I'd love to know why, and hit that subscribe button with the bell icon. As always, if you'd like to show me some extra support, and to be honest, it would be very welcome given the current state of the game, then check the description for my other links, and consider using the hype function to get this video some extra attention. You get 3 free hypes per week, and it helps us smaller content creators out a ton. For now, I will see you all in the next video. Peace, Guardians.